Greetings, fellow scribes! Welcome back to the archive! This week's discussion is the first of a several-part series discussing the history of the Legend of the Five Rings games as they go through the three different companies over the game systems and the IP's 24 years of life. The setting and world itself is a romanticized idea of Asian culture with a heavy emphasis on a romanticized idea of Japanese culture. It lends itself well to samurai drama like the works of Akira Kurosawa, and stories like the famous novel The Tale of Genji. At the same time, it lends itself to incorporating more fantastical elements, because the setting is a world where the spirit world is alive and vibrant. You could say it's take Inuyasha, take Akira Kurosawa, Tale of Genji, put them into a blender, throw in a dash of Romance of the Three Kingdoms, and some elements from Korea, and you get this beautifully unique setting because of the differences between it and the actual cultures. It creates a unique setting. The reasons for certain practices are actually explained throughout the stories, and these stories are important to the setting. These are things that set up not just traditions, but backstory that influences everything to come. And I want to talk about both these stories and how the game itself was shaped by the actions and stories of players. So, come sit back and enjoy as I start discussing one of my favorite game worlds. The setting of The Legend of the Five Rings begins with a story. I will give this to you in short form. The goddess Amaterasu gave birth to 10 children, the Kami. The moon god Onotangu ate them. And the last child, Hante, was brought poison that caused Onotangu to vomit them up. As they were vomited up, they fall to the earth. Fall from the celestial heavens to the mortal realm. And as they fall, one had been in Onotangu's belly too long and never came out. The other, as he was falling, Onotangu grabbed him and Hante used his sword to chop off Onotangu's hand, but this younger brother fell and was lost into a different area, falling through the mortal realm into the realm of evil. And this was how the Kami came to Earth. The 8 who landed on Sepun Hill held a great tournament between them to determine who would be the ruler of the realms that they found themselves in. The Kami Togashi sat out the tournament because he knew who would win anyway and felt to compete would be pointless. the Kami Bayushi lost on purpose so that the better leader could win. And this led to the Hantei dynasty. The first Hantei was the Kami Hantei himself. And the 7 remaining Kami went off founding clans of mortals that they led to fulfill various jobs, various roles. The Lady Doji, she created the Crane Clan, the clan of artists and poets and scholars. The culture, the left hand of the empire. The Kami Akodo created the Lion Clan, the clan of warriors, strategists, master swordsmen, historians, and thus became the right hand of the empire. The Kami Hida created the Crab Clan to guard the southern expanse of the empire from threats that would come there. Creating the Crab Clan, the wall that defends the empire. The Unicorn Clan were founded by the Kyrene Clan were founded by the Kami Shinjo. And they were explorers, and after many of the initial events, they left the empire for a long time, eventually to return, but that is another story. The Kami Shiba met with a great mortal magician and philosopher, Isawa, and together they created the Phoenix Clan, which are the scholars of the empire, but also the masters of the elemental magics of the Shugenja, the priestly, wizardly caste of the samurai. The Kami Togashi went to a mountain to watch the empire. And of course, the Kami Bayushi became the empire's underhand. The villain to keep the other clans from turning on each other. The person who led his people to do those things that an honorable samurai shouldn't do, but need to be done for the health of the empire. They are where opium is produced for medicinal reasons. They will kill people who are stepping out of line, being a danger to the empire. And from this start is where our story grows. There's the story of Ichiban, the first blood speaker, the first Mahosukai, blood magic user, who raised an army out of the lion family crypts. And so the practice of cremating the dead became the law of Rokugan. There's the story of the dueling rivalry between the dragon duelist Miramoto and the crane duelist Kikita, where they had two completely different styles, Kikita emphasizing a style focusing on the perfection of one cut. Mirumoto dealing with a style involving the two swords, the long and the short, Niten, and the clash of the ideologies that ultimately led in a final duel between them where they both died. And this is the story that builds on this world, that this world is built on. We have the return of the unicorn several hundred years after they left. The Kyrene left the Empire, went up, out, around, came through the great wall that the crab had built, and crashed through, rode straight through the heart of the Empire to their ancestral lands, and proved their identity with a fan that was given to the Lady Shinjo before she left by the Lady Doji. The unicorn were outsiders. They actually created an outsider perspective for many a new player because they never really quite fit in with the rest of Rokugan, the Emerald Empire, because they're a dash of Mongol, a dash of Arab, and a bunch of other things. They are very much their own entity, and that's why they abandoned the name the Kyrene, becoming known as the Unicorn. And this is where our game starts. This world. And when the game started, in the card games, the Scorpion had been exiled. They had attempted a coup, attempted to overthrow the Empire, and were exiled. For a period of several years, they were slaves of a civilization outside the Empire. But they broke free and they came back. But when the first edition of the card game comes out, the Scorpions have no lands. They are scattered throughout the Empire, relying on those who will give them kindness, show them hospitality, rely on their special skills. And so much happens. In fact, I'm not going to go into that story. Another YouTuber told it much better, because he was actually there through this. I am going to include a link down below in the description. Please watch that. That is the best explanation of this era. And how much the players were involved in this storytelling. So the first thing you're probably thinking as you hear that story is, that doesn't sound very Japanese. In fact, that sounds an awful lot like the story of how Zeus freed his siblings from Kronos. And you're right. It does, doesn't it? And that's important, because that creates a foundation that is not Japanese, not Asian. That allows the Western authors to start from the beginning with something that is different. And that difference allows them to develop the setting organically, develop the history of the setting, and allow for them to be selective about some of the things that they include. We have the families like the Utaku and the Matsu, who are matriarchal. That would not really be the case in a traditional Japanese-inspired setting. So, we already know it's deviated. And here's these stories explaining why these two families are the way they are. Here's the story of why the crab built the wall. Building walls isn't a Japanese thing, it's a Chinese thing. But the Great Carpenter Wall was built to stop a very powerful, very specific Oni. And the story behind that involves sacrifice, tragedy, and it is a gut-wrenching story to read. But at the same time, it explains why something was done. The story behind Ichiban, Raising an Army of the Dead, explains why cremation is a thing. Everything has an explanation somewhere. Why is dueling the accepted way to deal with disputes between samurai or between clans? Because the two greatest duelists, Miyamoto and Kikita, while they both died, they stopped a battle. They ended a war with their actions, with their duel. And every time two samurai resolve a dispute between their clans, between their families, or even between themselves with a duel, it is paying homage to those two great duelists, because that is the legacy that spans through the history of Rokugan. And that is important. The setting is all about the story. Everything has a story. And that's important. Because when you sit down at a game table, especially with this game, you're not there to have a fight. You're not there for just, let's go, kill stuff, loot the bodies, get rich. You're there to tell a story. And that is what this game focuses heavily on. That's what this setting and card games focus on. Because when you're playing the card games, there's a story playing out. It might be the story of a border skirmish, or it might be the story of dynastic struggle between two clans. But you're telling a story when you play that card game. You're telling a story when you play the role-playing games. And this game is about stories. Which is why I'm going to end this video on the stories. Next week, I will be discussing a little bit about the mechanics of the card game, a little bit about the first couple editions of the role-playing game. I look forward to you all being here next week. If you liked this video, please click on like or subscribe below. And I look forward to talking more about Legend of the Five Rings next week. Have fun and keep gaming.